I know a thing or two around how difficult it can be to get yourself to change. I have been trying to create this result in my life and it's been so difficult. What gives? Well, you're in luck because we're going to talk about why it's so difficult to change and what to do about it if you're serious about creating change in your life. So with that, let's get into it. Hey, CourtneyLSanders here. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to me, I'm a full-time online life and business coach, certified life and business coach, as well as wife and mom. I wear all the hats and do all the things. And not only because I'm in the industry of coaching, which is kind of all about helping clients create change, but also because I've had to do a lot of changes in my own life in order to achieve the results that I wanted and really to create the life that I was ultimately going after. I know a thing or two around how difficult it can be to get yourself to change, let alone to get others to change, right? And I find that we don't talk about this enough, especially in the coaching arena. I know many of the people who follow me are looking to build online coaching businesses. They want to be successful in their online coaching businesses. Hint, hint, we do teach this in my coaching certification. I've talked a lot on this channel about how I got my coaching certification, and now we are offering an accredited coaching certification to other coaches who are interested in learning my methodology. You can learn all about that by clicking the link below. But regardless of what type of coaching you ultimately do, essentially you're helping your clients achieve a particular result, and oftentimes achieving that result involves change. So whether you are a coach yourself and you're looking to coach others, even if you're an informal coach, maybe you coach people at work, or maybe you're a self-taught coach and you're like, man, how do I get my clients to actually get across the finish line and do the things that they come to me and say that they need help doing? Or maybe you want this for yourself, right? Maybe you're like, Courtney, I'm not in coaching at all. I don't know nothing about that, but I know that I have been trying to create this result in my life and it's been so difficult. What gives? Well, you're in luck because we're going to talk about why it's so difficult to change and what to do about it if you're serious about creating change in your life. So with that, let's get into it. All right. So you want to know the real reason why it's so difficult to change? Come here. I'm about to spill the tea. I'll tell you. All right. True talk. Like truthfully. All right. The reason why it is so difficult to change is because people try to create change from their present identity and not their future one. I'll say that again. People try to create change from their present identity and not their future one. Meaning, let's say they have a health goal and they want to create change around their routine, working out consistently, eating healthier. They will do it from the identity of, I'm a couch potato, I'm such a slob, I'm so unhealthy, I'm so lazy, right? That's my identity. And now I'm going to try to force myself to eat healthy and stick to a routine and blah, 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 all these different things. Well, no wonder it's difficult because you're doing it from the identity of a person for whom that is not normal and natural, right? Or maybe you're a student. This was my story, right? I talked elsewhere on this video, or on this channel rather, about how I had a full ride engineering scholarship. I lost it because I was goofing off trying to start a business, and I really had to claw my way back into school and back to getting my grades up. A lot of people who struggle, students who struggle, they're like, oh, it's so difficult, to go to class. It's so difficult to focus and get my homework done on time and do my studies because I'm such a lazy person. I'm so bad at math, or I'm so bad at history, I'm so bad at English, or I just don't understand, or whatever. Well, no, duh, it's difficult because if that's your identity, again, you are pursuing something that is not normal and natural for you. And so I know it sounds like a Jedi mind trick, but this is like true. This is something that you have to master. In fact, this is a part of my own coaching methodology and how I create transformation for my clients. And I talk about this in detail in a podcast that I did, which was actually a clip from one of the modules inside of my coaching program, right? This is how I introduce my own methodology to clients of mine who go through my coaching certification program. So if you want to check that out, you can check out that video here, which is all about how I coach myself to success. But again, it sounds like a Jedi mind trick. It's not. You need to first adopt the identity of someone for whom the behavior that you are trying to engage in is normal and natural. And from there, it is a lot easier to do it, right? So essentially, you have to step into your future self, not your current self. Don't try to do things as your current self would do. Don't try to engage in beliefs and behaviors that your current self has. You're gonna have to operate and believe and just play pretend until, reality catches up, you're gonna have to operate from that future self if you want the results that only that person can provide. And this is a real thing, and this is something that I've seen pretty much every successful person do, whether they recognize it or not. In fact, I was actually watching a video from YouTuber Alex Hormozi. I know he's like super popular, super famous on YouTube. He and his wife have really great videos. I'm in the midst of expanding my business and growing my team, so I've been enjoying a lot of their videos, especially as they talk about scaling and team building. But he had a really interesting video where he was talking about how he will sometimes like have a whole conversation with himself, but he's asking his future self, right? And it's like, well, how do you ask your future self if you're not that person? He literally would step into the mindset, and he says this in this video, I didn't make this up. He says it in this video that he steps into the mindset of what, 80-year-old him, who has already been through all of this and already knows the right answer, what would that person say? And he literally coaches himself. It's like crazy. You should check out the video. We'll include a link below where you can see that. But when I saw that, I felt so validated, because I was like, this is what I have been coaching on forever, and this is what I have done myself. Again, with my whole college drama, I had to step into the mindset, step into the identity of an A+ student before my grades reflected that, right? I saw myself as an A student, and then my reality caught up. In fact, I even had to do this relatively recently. I wanna say 2 or 3 years ago. I was a part of a mastermind, a very expensive mastermind, by the way, that I paid a lot of money to be a part of, but everyone in this mastermind was like way ahead of me. I hadn't even had my first $1 million year yet, and these people were having like multiple $1 million years. Like many of them were multi-7-figure, some even 8-figure entrepreneurs, but I knew I needed to get in that environment, not just to learn what to do, but to learn who to be, okay? I needed to learn how to be and who to be, and I wanted to adopt the mindset and the belief patterns that a lot of these ultra successful people had. And so I remember there was a discussion in the mastermind, and they were telling us a particular marketing strategy, and to me it just seemed like a lot of work. I was like, oh my goodness, like where am I gonna find the time to do all of this and to put all of this stuff in place? And so after they went over the marketing strategy, they said, does anyone have any questions? And I sheepishly raised my hand, and I was just like, how are you guys managing all of this? Like, this is a lot. Like, how are you going to implement and put all of these things together? And everyone kind of looked at me really confused, and they just kind of answered, and they were like, well, it was never our expectation that you were going to do this. We expected that like your marketing assistant, or do you have an executive assistant, or like someone on your team would do this. And at the time, I had like a very small team, but I didn't have an executive assistant. I didn't have a lot of people supporting me. And I was like, oh, what? And so later, one of them pulled me to the side, and they were like, look, in this mastermind, we meet several times a year. Next time you come to this mastermind, you better have hired an executive assistant. And I was all like, oh, what do you mean? I don't know if my revenue could support that. An executive assistant, this would need to be a US-based person with a US salary, and all of these things, pay taxes on this person. Like, I don't know if I could take on that commitment. I was actually very skittish, because I've told this story previously as well, but when I first quit my job and I really ramped up in my coaching business, I took on a lot of one-on-one clients, but then when I became pregnant with my son, it was clear that I wasn't going to be able to do as many one-on-one coaching engagements as I was doing. And so I had to let a lot of those coaching engagements roll off. But at the time, I had hired 2 US-based staff people, and I was paying them like full-time US salaries, and I had to lay them off. And it was very hurtful to my ego. I felt like a failure. I was like, oh my goodness, I just started this business. Now I'm laying people off. So I had this kind of like gun shyness around like, ooh, do I want to hire someone again, especially hire someone who's like based in the States and, have to pay like US, salaries. Like, people in the US, it's expensive, right? US salaries are not cheap. And this person was like, I don't care how you have to figure it out. I promise you, if you get this person installed in your business, even before you quote unquote can technically afford them, you will then generate the revenue to be able to afford them. And I was like, okay. And part of the reason why I'm glad I paid a lot of money for this mastermind is because it didn't allow me to have any excuses, right? I was like, well, I ain't pay all this money for this mastermind not to do what these people tell me to do. So even though it makes no sense to me, why on earth would I hire someone if I can't afford them? I'm just gonna do it, and we'll see what happens. And so that's exactly what I did. I went home, I hired my beautiful executive assistant who's been with me for 2 going on 3 years now. And lo and behold, don't you know, we had our first $1 million year last year in 2022, and we have been rocking and rolling since then. I've since hired like a dozen other people, and paying salaries and all these things, and our business has grown so much. And they were right? But I never would have known to do those things had I not adopted the identity, even when it was scary scary to me, the beliefs and mindset of a 7-figure, multi-7-figure, and even 8-figure entrepreneur. And so I was actually telling a friend this the other day who was kind of going through a similar crisis in her business. And now, I'm on the other side, and it feels really great to be able to coach people through that. But I told her, I said, you know what? Sometimes you have to, make the leap and cross the bridge and then build it after you've crossed it, right? Sometimes you have to build the bridge after you crossed it. I think that's what I said. Sometimes you have to build the bridge after you have crossed it, meaning you got to make that leap where there's no ground beneath your feet, but after you've made the leap, you'll then have the resources to then build the ground behind you. And so it's the same process with anything, whether it's in business, whether it's health and fitness, whether it's relationships, right? There's a beautiful movie. Oh my goodness, what is the name of that movie? I remember it had to do with a fireman, Fireproof. I'm like, what is the name of this movie? Fireproof, a beautiful movie about a man who was very, very frustrated with his wife, and they're on the verge of divorce, and he's like, this is terrible, she doesn't support me, blah, blah, blah. And ended up doing this thing called the Love Dare, where essentially he adopted the mindset and the behaviors and the attitudes of a husband who was in an amazing marriage and absolutely loved his wife and, all these things. And he did those things and he behaved that way. And again, he adopted that mindset, even though that wasn't his reality. And not to spoil the movie, but I'll just say their marriage turned around for the better, right? He didn't wait for the marriage to be better for him to start acting like an amazing husband. He said, I'm gonna act this way now, even though I don't think my wife deserves it. And then, I'm gonna watch my reality catch up. So that is the reason why it's so hard to change, is because people want the return before they make the investment. And that's not how it works, right? We know that in finances, right? You have to invest and then you see a return. It's the same thing with your mindset. It's the same thing with your behavior patterns. You have to step into that future self. You have to step into that future you. You have to have the mindset and do the things that your future self would do, and then watch the change happen. But you cannot change based on who you are today. You're gonna have to take the leap and start acting and believing and modeling yourself after the person you want to be, and then watch the change happen, right? It's a lot easier to do things as a person for whom those behaviors are normal and natural than it is for you to do things as a person for whom those behaviors are not normal and natural, right? It's a lot easier for you to work out consistently if you adopt the identity of an athlete than if you maintain the identity of a couch potato who has no time. You're darn right, it's gonna be difficult to work out consistently. So you first have to take on a new identity, and then it makes doing the behaviors that create change a lot easier. So that's actually just a part of my transformational methodology. Again, I talk about it in detail in that podcast that I recently did, all about how I coach myself to success. And again, that podcast, I take a pretty good chunk, a pretty good clip from a module inside of my coaching certification program, where I'm explaining to the students what my coaching methodology is. And I decided to make it public so that people could see not only how I coach myself to success, but really what my philosophy is and how I coach my clients to success. So if you want to change, hopefully this video is very helpful for you. And if you want to help others create change, in fact, you want to be a coach, you want to coach clients to success, you want to have a wildly successful coaching business, working for yourself and helping and impacting others in the process, I invite you to apply for my coaching certification program. You can learn more about it by clicking the link below. It'll take you to a short video, where a few minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, where you can watch me talk about how this process works, what the coaching certification program is. And if you're still interested, you can click the button below that to apply, and then schedule a demo with my team, and we'll walk you through the entire process. So hopefully this video was helpful to you either way. If you loved it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you can't wait for my next YouTube video, make sure you are subscribed to my podcast, The Courtney Sanders Show, on both iTunes and Spotify. And if you can't wait for my next podcast episode or my next YouTube video, make sure you're following me on Instagram. It's CourtneyLSanders on Instagram. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.